Alright, welcome back boys and girls. Let's get straight into my reaction to the main card of UFC 284. I'm going to do this one a little bit differently and release the main card first and then the prelims after, just to see how that does this time. Now, I talked a lot of shit about this card leading into it. I thought it was really poorly stacked for a main card. But honestly, the main event is so massive that it kind of didn't matter. Right, so firstly, I want to say what a meathead fight promo we got from Menifield, but it was pretty funny. I did pick him to get a TKO in this one. Now, I mentioned in the build-up that Crute has a lot of potential, and I said this in my fight predictions. And I saw this fight going in two distinct ways. I had it as either a KO for Menifield or a ground-out win for Crute later on. What an amazing fight this was to open with. I didn't see this one going the distance, but it did, and both men deserve a lot of credit for that straight off the bat. Fight started out with no messing about, both men going at it trading. First half of the round, Menifield was dominated on the ground, and I was instantly thinking, right, this is the way this fight is going. Crute's avoided taking a shot. However, despite having the first round in dominant position, Menifield managed to reverse it, and he ended the round beating the shit out of Crute, who was pretty lucky to survive. I think if it had lasted another 30 seconds, I think Menifield would have got the finish. I expected both men to be gassed out at this point, but the energy really continued into the second. So the fight was basically a tale of two different stories, I guess. Menifield got the takedowns and the significant damage on the feet, and Crute got the takedowns and control time on the floor. So given the significant knockdowns and damage, by the end of the second round, I had Menifield up by 2, given how the scoring works or should work. I was really impressed of how Crute survived, and I couldn't help thinking at the time how fucking good Jamal Hill is, who destroyed Crute, like absolutely got him out of there in no time. The telling moment for me was the third round, obviously. The deduction for the persistent cage grabbing by Menifield really swung it. And then Crute went and dominated the rest of the round, so he fairly got a 10-8 in that. So if that hadn't happened, I would have had it 2-1 to Menifield. But with the cage grabbing and the point deduction, gave him obviously a 10-8 in the third. So yeah, fairly called a draw. I thought it was a hell of a fight. I'd love to see it again. Unlike the draw on the last card, which was a total waste of everyone's time, this was really entertaining. Fantastic way to start the cards. I was hoping at this point that the energy keeps up. So now I remain at 4-4. Great fight. Really nice mutual respect shown at the end too. Both men essentially had their stock risen, so perfect situation. Alright, so on to the War of the Puddings. Why did this one have to be the one to follow such a great opening fight? For fuck's sake. Mercifully anyway, this one was very, very quick. They basically felt each other out for 30 seconds. Then they both decided to just bang it out and trade. This resulted in Tafa basically knocking his head off with another beautiful walk-off KO. Right hook right on the bottom. Sorry, on the button. Really cool thing to see whenever you get KOs like that. At this point, it had kept my parlays alive as well, so I was pretty chuffed. I'm glad this was fast and stunning as it kept the energy on the card going. So it was a perfect result and a really nice lead into the feature fight. So I then moved up to 5-4. I was happy to be back in the win column at this point. So this then took us to the feature fight. Now, I was really, really excited about this one. Maddalena is obviously the hot prospect coming in, but Brown for me, really was a potentially dangerous fight. I'd picked Maddalena, but in the build-up, I said I expected a fairly tough fight. I chose to avoid this one in terms of the betting lines because I just felt like there was no value, and I couldn't even see a distance play. As I said in the build-up, I could see a quick finish, or it going the distance, depending on how things played out. I think I said like it was either going to be a Maddalena KO or Brown was going to pick at distance, and I said that Maddalena would win a close decision, 2-1. I also did say that if Jack did make light work of Brown, that he's going to be a scary prospect moving forward. And boy, oh boy, what a performance. So the fight started out as I kind of expected. Randy Brown was staying at range, and it looked like Jack was going to struggle to get inside. So my prediction was looking pretty solid. But then Randy started getting really cocky, and I thought, you fucking dumbass, be careful. And then came the mistake. So Randy basically lost concentration for a second, and his back was up against the cage. And with Maddalena able to close the distance, he just unloaded. And he hit him with a really nasty shot and just face planted him. Then got on top, seized the moment, ground and pounded, and wrapped up a rear naked choke. This man is a massive problem, and I think could be a future champion somewhere down the line. He seems, really well-rounded, and if he can do this to somebody like Randy Brown, who has potential problems, he's long, and there was potential issues there. He definitely should get a top 15 opponent next. So yeah, I was 6-4 now and back rolling again. Really decent main card so far. I was really happy with what I'd seen up to that point. Really good. Now this took us to the co-main event for the interim featherweight strap. Now, as you know, if you've listened to the previous build-up videos, I did shit all over this. Not just because I don't think either man deserves to be fighting for a belt, but as interims go, this really was the most pointless interim fight. Sometimes interims make sense when the champion is on the shelf for a long time or is inactive for one reason or another. But this isn't one of those situations. There felt like there was no need for an interim fight here. Volk has been really active last year. I think he defended, 4 or 5 months ago, something like that. Anyway, let's ignore that and focus on the fight itself, as to be fair, it was a fight between two really good contenders. I did pick Yair to win, and what an incredible performance, to be fair, from Yair. He set the tone by hitting really nasty body kicks, picking at range. Emmett looked really outmatched at this point, so kind of leading into the first round, it looked like the fight was going to go one way. He was surviving, but he looked outclassed. So the clear first part of the round was for Yair, who was hitting really excellent and varied strikes. It was really impressive to see. I really love body investment, and Yair was giving Emmett so much to think about, just hitting the body, going to the head, chopping away at the legs. He just really varied strikes up from different angles, and he was kind of gliding out of there and just avoiding whatever Emmett had to throw. Now, the round changed really suddenly when Yair made a mistake, and Emmett was able to take him to the ground. He hit some decent ground and pound and control, but Yair still looks really dangerous on the bottom, and he didn't really have any urgency to try and get back to his feet. But round 2 was when the fight became really clear. Yair went back to the body and was snapping shots, and Emmett was basically swinging and missing, and Yair was really continuing to apply damage. You could see Emmett was wearing it, with his eye quite messed up at that point, and Yair punctuated this dominance with a really nice question mark kick that rocked Emmett for a second, and just seemed to be catching him at will. Now, there was a point in the round where Yair hit a really massive knee to the face, and I thought, he's gone, like, Emmett's finished. But he kind of ended up falling. Yair then hit the knee and then kind of fell into bottom. And I was thinking, alright, okay, so this is going to end in the same way the last round did, where, Yair's done the most damage, but he's going to end up on bottom, and then it makes it a tighter round. But that ended up not being the case. He stayed really patient. He was throwing really vicious elbows at the bottom. And when Emmett went to defend, Yair latched up a really beautiful triangle choke and forced Emmett to tap. Really fantastic performance, and he really showed how much he's improved. I felt a little wrong to have shot on this one so much. Maybe he can give Volk a decent fight. So yeah, latched up that lovely choke, and that took me to 7-4. So now I felt pretty good knowing I was guaranteed to end with a winning record. And considering the really bad robbery in the first fight, which I really think I won, I should really be 8-3 now. And I think I got a little bit unlucky with the Menifield fight as well. Because without that points deduction, it would have been 9-2. So pretty unlucky, but, you know, decent record heading into the last fight. And I can't wait to talk about this one. Now, going into this, I was really torn because I had, as you know, I do a safe parlay and a long distance parlay, or a risky parlay. And I had the last leg of my parlay on. So in my safe parlay, I basically had a guaranteed like £300 if Islam won. The problem is I just really dislike him. And I really love Volk. So I was really kind of hoping and praying that I'd lose my money at this point. Now, before I get into what actually happened in the fight, first off, I have to say this fight really lived up to all the hype. What a fight. It's maybe the best fight I've seen in years, and that's really saying something. We've had some bangers over the last few years. So round one started off with Volk. He rocked him really early, and this really set a tone for the whole fight. It was like, okay, you know, this isn't a mismatch. Volk clearly belongs to being there. I mean, anyone with half a brain would have known that anyway. But then Islam managed to get a takedown, and he saw the round out in dominant position. So it was kind of going as I expected at this point. My prediction was that Volk would have to survive the first two, and then he'd start to take over. Now, second round, Volk had some really nice moments. And most significantly, he managed to get back up after being taken down. And that felt like a really important moment. I did have Islam taking the round. Some people would agree with this, and again on the scoring, it's a difficult one. I had it 2-0 at this point. Some people gave Volkanovski the second. I don't know. I think it's hard to, considering how much control time there was, even though Islam didn't do that much of it. And Volk was hitting him from where he was and did manage to get up pretty quickly. Now, round 3 was a really, really good Volk round. He was switching stances, creating problems for Islam. He was investing a lot of strikes to the body and legs, and it felt like he was starting to impose himself a little. Really dominant round for Volk. I think there's no way you can't call it for him. So I had it 2-1, and it really felt like shit. Like I'm onto something here. You know, I've kind of predicted it to go this way, and the fight really felt in the balance at this point. Now, the fourth round. This is where I felt this one kind of slipped away. Volk started well by landing a few shots, but he made a really massive mistake at a point where Islam had kind of half taken him down. And Volk just started talking to Islam's corner, which I thought was such a silly thing to do. And as he was talking, Islam just switched around to the back, got a dominant position in back control, and he basically saw out the round by scissoring up on him. And arguably you could say he gained the round. Now again, in scoring, it was Volk who was hitting the shots. Islam was basically just laying and praying, which is something I really hate. But you can see why the round would be given to him, and I think that this is where Volk essentially threw it away. So I think most people watching, and certainly the people that I was speaking to in the group, felt that Volk needed a KO or a finish to get the win. And unbelievably, round 5, also Volk's round, Islam seemed a little bit gassed. Volk was able to stuff takedowns, control the hands, and most importantly, he managed to finish the fight really dominantly. He was raining down ground and pound, so he ended the fight in the dominant position, and it looked like if the fight was going to continue, that Volk was on the way to winning, and I think that's a really important thing to note. Now, I picked Alexander Volkanovski, and I've been floating around a few forums. I tuned into the MMAGuru's last, because I wanted to see what his view of it was, and he looked really pissed. I think he really thought that Volkanovski had won, and I think he was saying 4 rounds to 1. I don't necessarily agree with this. As I was watching it, I felt like Islam had won the fight, and I felt like it was 3-2. And I think it was that lapse of concentration in the fourth that really cost him. Strangely though, it really felt like it was Volk, despite the loss, whose stock really rose. I mean, he was the heavy underdog. He was clearly undersized. He finished the fight in the dominant position, and he kept the fight very, very close. He had some really significant moments. I don't really see anyone else beating these two. And yeah, I guess the Yair fight at least looks a little bit interesting after what he did to Emmett. Weird thing is though, like, I think they really should run it back, but they probably won't, because obviously Islam won in his own division. So I think we're in a weird situation now. I think Volk's going to go back down and defend, and the fucked up thing is that there's no fights for Islam at lightweight at the moment. So the choice for him might be to try and go up and maybe take on a welterweight fight. You know, he'd probably be able to go straight for the title. And if he could do that, then he can start talking about being men's pound for pound. I think him claiming to be pound for pound now, it just doesn't feel right. You know, considering how the fight went, you know, Volkanovski, again, finished dominantly, looked really good, kept it close. He was the heavy, heavy underdog. And I feel vindicated in picking him to win, to be honest. Like, I felt like his stock rose more than Islam's. Great fight, though, and really capped off. It made the card feel better than it probably was. No, really good fight, and I hope we see it again. Alright, so that leaves me with a fight record of 7-5 on the card. Again, I think I was a bit unlucky. There were two of those. One was a clear robbery that I should have had in the first with Tukagov. I got a little bit unlucky with Menifield, but generally I can't complain. It leaves me with an overall record of 29-16. I'll have to double check what the percentage win ratio is on that, but I was generally pretty happy. From what I gather, everyone really enjoyed the cards. Again, thanks for tuning in on this. I'm going to post this one up pretty quickly. I'm not going to do too much editing. I'm just going to get it straight up. But yeah, hope everyone enjoyed the card as much as I did. And yeah, the prelim one will follow up after this. And then you'll get a prediction for the fight night probably on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm not too keen on this one. I mean, it's a Blanchfield Andrade main event, which I'm, whatever. But yeah, you'll see that in the week. And yeah, I'll catch you in a bit.